I am here to share with the Senate that I think we have finally found a path forward to fund the fight against Zika. The specifics are still being worked out, but it seems that there will be a deal and we'll soon be able to move forward on doing what we tried to do last summer, which is fund the crisis that we know as the Zika crisis. Let me just briefly describe it. Populations outside of the continental United States, such as Brazil, a highly infected population because of the presence of this type of mosquito, the Aedes aegypti mosquito. He's not like a normal mosquito. Normal mosquitoes come out at night. They fly all around in the countryside. This Florida boy, when this Florida boy grew up, I was bitten by so many mosquitoes, I was almost immune. But this Aegypti mosquito lurks in the dark corners of your house, lays her eggs, her larvae, in stagnant water, but not a pool, not a pond, like normal mosquitoes, can lay their larvae in a still surface of water in as small as a bottle cap that has caught water. And as a result, this mosquito, transmitting the virus, feeds not on one person at a feeding, but 4 people. And thus, an infected mosquito has now just transmitted the virus to 4 people, who in turn can now transmit it to others by sexual contact, or another uninfected mosquito bites the infected person. Now that mosquito is infected and can go on, and you see how it can expand. Well, in Florida, there are 756 cases of the virus that we know of, and that includes 84 pregnant women. Now, why do I say pregnant women? Because if you get the virus, it's just like a mild flu. But if you're pregnant, and you get the virus in the first trimester of pregnancy, there is a 2 to 11% chance that your baby is going to be deformed, because the virus attacks the developing fetus in the brain stem and causes the brain and the head to shrink. Now that's what we're dealing with. And when we left here back in the summer, early July, to some senators it was out of sight, out of mind. But you've seen the increasing numbers of cases, thousands now nationwide, 756 in Florida alone. And by the way, that's just what we know of. The CDC is estimating that there are 4 people walking around with the virus for every 1 that we know. And so you see the problem. Now, bring this back to politics. I can tell you that the people in Florida are pretty agitated. I've been there the last 2 weekends, and I can tell you it's the number one issue on their mind. So the fact that some of our Republican colleagues, particularly down in the House of Representatives, are willing to put on the Zika funding bill ridiculous riders and insist on that now for 3 votes. Let me take you back. Remember, we voted a bipartisan, overwhelming vote in this Senate for $1.1 billion to get at it. To do what? Local mosquito control, healthcare assistance, continued research on the vaccine. We're another 1 or 2 years away from a vaccine, but the Food and Drug Administration is ready to go with the first trial. Takes money. They've run out of the money. We need to do it. And the Senate recognized that. Back months ago, we passed, I think, by 89 votes out of 100 senators. Send it down to the House decides to play politics. So they add something to do with the Confederate flag. They add something to do with defunding Planned Parenthood. They add something that has to do with cutting Medicaid money going to Puerto Rico. Now, why is that particularly onerous? The CDC estimates that the population of Puerto Rico is 25% of that population is infected. A quarter of the people are infected. Of all places, in an island territory that are American citizens, a territory of the U.S., where we ought to be helping with the health care for a very poor population, we shouldn't be cutting additional funds to go into Puerto Rico. And yet, that's what we have been faced with. Well, I am of a mind of new optimism now, because I think common sense is beginning to break out. What we have seen also is that in this Florida situation of 756 cases, we've seen newspaper reports that the state of Florida government hadn't been transparent about the spread of the virus in our state. Miami Herald reported over the weekend that, quote, the information issued by the governor and state agencies has not been timely or accurate, that the cases announced as new are often several weeks old because of a time lag in diagnosis, and those cases exclude details that the public health experts say would allow people to make informed decisions and provide a complete picture of Zika's foothold in Florida. End of quote, the Miami Herald. Well, as we have said many times on this floor, it's not the time for political gains. Those games should be over, and we should do it. And this wonderful news that I have heard, that a deal is being struck, is welcome, welcome news to this senator. The threat that this country faces from the spread of this virus is real. The senator from Iowa, that Zika mosquito-carrying mosquito, the Aedes aegypti, they're in that state that you wouldn't normally think of having mosquitoes. We're in the midst of a public health crisis, and it should be treated like the emergency that it is. And so as we await the final details of this possible deal, it's important to remember that no one agency or state or leader is going to solve this crisis alone. Those who saw this virus as a political opportunity are the ones who got us into this mess of delay month after month. So the virus is not a political opportunity. It's a public health emergency. To stop the spread of the virus, we are going to have to do what we did months ago: come together in a bipartisan fashion. And so as the Congress comes together to finally act, we're going to need leaders across the country to act prudently and expeditiously to put these funds to use as quickly as possible. So members of Congress, pass the Zika bill. We need it now. Mr. President, I yield the floor.